Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Geek TV, your number one destination for all things sci-fi and nerd. Today we'll be looking back at the latest episode of Doctor Who, The Rings of Akhaten. We'll be delivering our verdict on the Doctor and Clara's latest adventure and also discussing the exciting 50th anniversary casting announcements. Joining me as always on this adventure is my very own non-time travelling assistant Morgan Jeffery. Say hello, Morgan.
Hello.
Right, Morgan, the big news this week, the biggest of big news, Doctor Who's 50th. Tennant's back,
Yes.
Piper's back, Jonah Page is in it, John Hurt's in it, the bloody Zygons are back, everyone's back. What was your honest reaction to this news when it broke on Saturday?
Well, obviously my first reaction was that they announced it on a Saturday, so I had to work on a weekend, which was a little bit annoying. But no, genuinely I was kind of excited that Tennant was coming back. You know, I think it's a great decision to bring him back. Obviously, he's still hugely popular with fans. He's still hugely popular with a general audience. They still recognise him. And yeah, I think he's a massive Doctor Who fan himself. So there was no way he was going to miss out on the 50th.
And we're all excited about what accent Billie Piper's going to come back with this time.
Sure. Yeah, she's kind of done Cockney. She's done slightly dodgy Cockney with a hint of kind of posher English in there. You know, who knows what she's going to go for this time.
Bulgarian.
Bulgarian.
I think a Bulgarian assistant.
Yeah.
I think helping out David Tennant.
Sure, a parallel rose from Bulgaria.
Alternately, Sylvester McCoy has said that he's not coming back. None of the old Doctors, the classic Doctors, the ones before Christopher Eccleston. Basically, I don't want to upset anyone. Old Doctors, new Doctors, they're all the same to me. I don't care. But he said none of them are coming back. Do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing? Do you believe him?
Well, this is the thing. It's possible that everybody's lying and everybody's in it. But yeah, Sylvester McCoy has said that none of the 20th century Doctors will be in the special, or he thinks it's very unlikely that there will be. So no one pre-2005, pre-Christopher Eccleston. So you've got no Tom Baker, no Peter Davison, no Paul McGann, none of them. And I think it is possible that you will just have David Tennant and Matt Smith as the two leads. Christopher Eccleston has seemed quite reluctant to come back to Doctor Who, so those are the two recognisable leads of the new series. But I don't think you'll see the past Doctors completely cut out of the 50th special. I think even if they don't feature, they'll feature in some way. There'll be classic clips or something along those lines.
We've got to get Sylvester McCoy playing the spoons in there somewhere.
If only.
Squeeze it in.
I think so. Colin Baker's coat, Peter Davison in his cricket whites. I want it all, but who knows what will happen.
And John Hurt is going to be in it. That was an exciting bit of casting. I was watching him at the weekend in King Ralph. That's obviously his most famous and distinguished role.
Of course.
You must be pleased to have someone of that calibre joining the show.
Yeah, because as great as it is to have old Doctors and old companions coming back, it's also important to assemble a great guest cast around them. And John Hurt, I think, is a terrific choice. He's kind of exactly the right sort of actor you want to have in Doctor Who. He's obviously got a long list of brilliant roles he's played in the past. And at the moment, he's kind of got a little bit of geek cred from voicing the dragon in Merlin. So I think cult fans will be very excited on that level as well.
Maybe he'll come in as the dragon for Merlin.
As a Merlin crossover for the 50th.
Yeah, what more could we want?
Geek-ageddon, it would be.
And Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock Holmes would be riding
the dragon.
Riding the dragon.
And that's not a euphemism. No.
That's too much fan fiction.
Yeah, that's slash fiction, right?
And obviously, even more exciting than all of that, something I know that's got you, brimming with Doctor Who excitement.
It's the number one story.
Is the return of the Zygons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Why should we be excited?
Well, I mean, forget David Tennant, forget Billie Piper. It's all about the Zygons. They're a sort of a classic monster from the old series. They only appeared once in the old series during Tom Baker's era when they took control of the Loch Ness Monster and used it to attack a small Scottish village. Yeah, no, they're a brilliant monster. They've got kind of this cracking design, and they were only used once, as I said, but fans have often campaigned for their return. And they're a really kind of interesting choice because they're not maybe an icon of the show like the Daleks or Cybermen, but they're an interesting monster to bring back, and I'm kind of genuinely excited that they are coming back.
They're no Candyman though, are they? Let's be honest.
We need the Candyman for the 50th, I think.
That's who I'm putting all my money on.
I'm slightly worried that it's kind of a Bertie Bassett lawsuit will prevent the return of the Candyman.
Anything can happen for the Doctor Who's 50th.
Start a fan petition now. Bring back the Candyman for the 50th. It's not complete without him. Let's make it happen. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. That's enough talk about the 50th anniversary. Let's talk about tonight's episode, The Rings of Akhaten. In my opinion, it was a good episode, but not a great one. Felt like it was missing something, possibly a second half and a decent ending. What did you think about it? Do you agree with me that it was a bit underwhelming?
I think it was definitely a dip in quality from last week. I think last week was a brilliant opener. And I also agree that I think the first half of this episode worked brilliantly. It had a kind of Star Wars feel as, the Doctor took Clara to this sort of alien bazaar and there were all these, different unique creatures. and that had a really nice feel to it. The second half, basically, once they drive their space moped across into the pyramid, you know, I feel it fell apart a little bit. There was too much reliance on the sonic screwdriver, which is a kind of a pitfall for a lot of Doctor Who writers. You know, this week it was opening doors, it was deflecting energy beams. You know, it was just a little too much on that front.
And if I want to see young girls singing opera music annoyingly, I would be watching Britain's Got Talent. I don't really want that on Doctor Who on BBC One.
There was a lot of singing.
It was, you know, that just over-egged the singing slightly. I thought, you know, we got the idea that they needed to sing.
Yeah, it's true that, you know, the closest thing we've ever got to a Doctor Who musical is maybe not what you'd expect from the writer behind Luther.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, you know, the singing didn't really bother me so much. It was just the fact that, you know, the ending. It was yeah. As I say, they kind of talked the monster into submission. You know, and it was all very, you know, well acted and well directed and emotively done. But at the end of the day, you know, it kind of fizzled out for me.
One slight problem with the episode, and it's always something that, you know, bugs certain people who maybe not the hardcore Doctor Who fans, but maybe passing fans, was the sort of special effects. Some of it looked great, this episode. Some of it was brilliant. It's exactly what Doctor Who does best. Some of it, I felt, looked pretty BBC 1990s, possibly 1980s, where when they were flying through space, when they were on the jet, Clara and the Doctor, that it didn't feel great. Do you think Doctor Who still has some way to go?
I think, you know, the fact you need to face is that Doctor Who does have a smaller budget than a lot of those American shows, and it's always going to. So, you know, the special effects are always, you know, they're never quite going to match, you know, maybe US sci-fi and fantasy shows. It's never going to look quite as good as, you know, Game of Thrones, for example. But, you know, I think in terms of what UK television is doing, the special effects were kind of among the best. I do agree with you. There are a couple of ropey moments, particularly, you know, those moments on the kind of space moped jet thing. It was kind of obvious it was green screen, and you're kind of always going to have those little niggles with Doctor Who. But I mean, I generally don't think it's too bad. Maybe it just, you know, as a classic fan, I'm used to, you know, rubber monsters and you know, terrible special effects of the past. So I'm just grateful when Doctor Who looks, you know, half acceptable.
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for on this week's Geek TV. Morgan and myself are off to snuggle down under our king-size Dalek duvet cover to rewatch The Tomb of the Cybermen. But worry not, we'll be back here next week with more geek news, views, and gossip than you can shake a sonic screwdriver at.